Okay, starting. So, hello everyone. It's a great pleasure to have you here to this webinar today. So, my name is Sarah, and I'm honored to be your host and speaker for this session. It's named Future of Education, the contribution of interdisciplinary doctoral schools. So, we will be together 1 hour, and we will keep time if you have questions at the end. So please, if you have questions during the speech, don't hesitate to put them in a chat, and we will try to answer them at the end. Before we begin, I will briefly introduce the WasiLab project. So the WasiLab project is a project founded by Fonds Equipe France, which is an initiative from the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs. So it has 5 partners, as you can see. The French Embassy of Ecuador, Pontifical Catholic University of Ecuador, that we call PUCE, Development Research Institute, Learning Planet Institute, and France Volontaire. So what is the WasiLab? It's the first interdisciplinary center for sustainability science in Latin America. So it's in Quito, in Ecuador. And it stands out for innovative scientific approach that promote transformative and collaborative research while investing in local development with the living labs. It also have a doctoral schools, that's why we are here, and we're trying to play a role in training the new generation of professionals capable of transforming development trajectories by emphasizing interdisciplinarity and strengthen the links between research, teaching, and society. So today we have the privilege of hearing from individuals, so Manon, Tania, and Camille, who are at the front row of the interdisciplinary doctoral education. So I'm going to introduce you briefly here. So I'm going to start by Manon. So Manon Salah, she's a doctoral student in sociology and education science here at the Learning Planet Institute. And her work focused on institutionalization of transition pedagogies in higher education. Hi Manon, thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Then we have Tania Gonzalez. She's an ethnobiologist specialized in climate change, food and local knowledge of traditional Mesoamerica, the Andes and the Amazon communities. So she is currently a postdoc at the WasiLab, and she's currently in Quito, Ecuador, where it's the morning. So thank you for being here, Tania, with us today.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me.
And finally, we have Camille Golond. So she's a PhD in physics and specialization in acoustic. She is a key figure in mentoring, guiding young researchers here at LPI with the FIRE. So FIRE, it's the doctoral school of FPI since 2006, and it stands for Frontier of Innovation and Research and Education. And so the FIRE doctoral school, it's the source of inspiration for the WasiLab project in Ecuador. So hi Camille, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Sarah, for having me. Hello, everyone.
And so together they have different perspective and expertise and experiences that make interdisciplinary doctoral schools a really good dynamic and transformative space for learning and research. So if you are ready, we will go dive in a subject, and we will go through 3 questions. So the first one will be, how do interdisciplinary doctoral schools like WasiLab shape the future of education, as the title of this webinar, and research, of course, by fostering innovation and promoting sustainable development. So I will give the mic to Camille. Thank you, Camille.
Thanks, Sarah, and hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar. I hope we'll share inspiring insights with you today. So it's obviously a big and dense question with diverse dimensions. First, I would just like to emphasize on, maybe we're all convinced of, the importance of having interdisciplinary research and education. And so that's especially why we are focusing the talk today about doctoral school because they have one foot on each side of education, because people are still getting trained as young researcher by starting to practice research. So it's a training, there's a diploma, so it's part of education, higher education. And at the same time, it's also research. It's starting to perform interdisciplinary research at their own scale and with collaboration with interdisciplinary teams. And so especially given the topic of sustainable development and the WasiLab, which has a strong focus on sustainability, it's quite obvious now that interdisciplinarity is needed to tackle big questions, big issues that the world is facing. One discipline alone cannot answer this type of big and complex questions. We need the insights of different disciplines, and here we are in interdisciplinarity. What I like maybe to say and emphasize is a difference sometimes of wording we can have between inter, pluri, multi, transdisciplinarity. It's not a matter just of wording, but more of the concepts and definition of what we put behind these terms. And to me, especially trying to tell you that there are different ways of doing interdisciplinary research. For instance, you can set up a new collaborative team with researchers from different disciplines that are going to address the same big problem or scientific challenge all together, but each one still specialized on his or her own disciplines. And so it's really through the collaboration process that you have an interdisciplinary dimension of the answer you're going to provide, but each person is still like doing the science he or she is used to doing his own disciplines. So it's already a very good, nice step. But what I think WasiLab has a much bigger ambition, as we are also trying to do in our doctoral school here at FIRE, is to have stronger ways of mixing two disciplines together. So especially trying, for instance, to mix methodology from one discipline to another, to really incorporate knowledge from another discipline to the one you're coming from. It can also be the way of defining your scientific question, even the type of object and topic you think is relevant from a scientific perspective can vary from one field to another. So it's really, I think, a good way to enrich your own perspective, have a wider vision on what you can do. And so especially, for instance, if you start mixing not only different disciplines from the natural sciences, for instance, but you really try to address a problem for both social humanities and natural sciences, then it starts to be more challenging, but maybe even more fruitful in the outcome and results your research could help achieve. And I think WasiLab, and especially everything again related to sustainability, is both on some part of natural sciences. Some sustainable problems are related to like health, agroecology, ecological concern, climate change, which rely on some natural sciences, but you also have a wide scope of needed resources from sometimes sociology, anthropology, psychology of change and how people adapt to moving environments. So it's really challenging, but super exciting, and really think like interdisciplinarity is key. And again, the doctoral level is a good moment to achieve it because you're still getting trained, but you are already doing research. And based on your previous training, maybe you already have enough knowledge in at least one discipline, and maybe get complementary training in a second one to be able to start this interdisciplinary process, because you definitely need like more information and more knowledge in different disciplines to be able to perform this type of research. So it's good to start like from master program, for instance, to start being open to interdisciplinarity. But I think one step further, it's easier to really achieve it in practice. And I would be happy to also hear what my other colleagues think about this super big question.
Thank you, Camille. I see that Manon is almost ready. Go ahead, Manon.
Okay. Yes, so hello everyone. I don't have so many things to add. I think, Camille, you introduced really with a lot of expertise the subject. But maybe what I can add is that indeed when we are focusing in one in silo, like in one aspect, one discipline, there are some black boxes that we cannot open when we are only in one way of thinking and one way of imagining the world and solving problems. And interdisciplinarity opens the way to also the unknown, because we can't know before what the mixtures of different methodologies will implement in terms of results, in terms of solutions. I think it's also, we consider the purpose of science itself, because it gives us also humility to try in two different ways. And sometimes it's not easy to mix two different approaches. So finally, it helps us to consider that even if we cannot be complete in the way we tackle a problem, at least maybe we focus more in the, in the complex process that conduct us to a possible solution. So for me, it's really a term of epistemology of science, where we can try to focus differently in our objectives in the process to resolve solutions, but also to be able to accept that this is not only by one path that we can solve all the sustainability issues, but only by mixing different point of views, methodologies, and different aspects of the complex issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Manon. Do you have anything to add, Tanya?
Yes, maybe I want to talk about that. We here in Ecuador recently held a debate to discuss the proposals of candidates running for president of Ecuador, and it was very, very interesting that the candidates present very simplistic solutions for various present issues. For example, for addressing poverty, exploit natural resources. So if we this reduction in solutions toward the complex nature of the problems maybe is a way to think from the most of a very huge part of the society. So if we apply this one problem solving mentally to education, and particularly to higher education, we find that many universities lacks the curriculum frameworks or the faculty organizations. They lack the way of thinking or how we match different disciplines, or how we match different knowledge to face wicked problems. No? How we think these problems as wicked problems, and how we at the university are prepared to solve this problem. So I think in this context, the WasiLab doctoral school is not just a very simplistic way of thinking that the business or the university as usual, but is an opportunity to think how we create interdisciplinary spaces and also transdisciplinary spaces to solve these complex problems. And this involves several aspects. For example, how we construct knowledge with other disciplines and also with non-academical stakeholders. And WasiLab has these living labs that are places with a very specific biodiversity characteristics, ecosystemical characteristics, and also are inhabit with social groups like indigenous communities or peasants communities to work together and promote long-term sustainability approaches and think about how we can improve their ways of life. As a result, the academic process is closely linked with action with communities, and I think this is a very a significant strength of WasiLab. Also, I think that WasiLab engaged with society and how the university interacts with other actors in specific territorial context. For example, maybe in many cases the university has an existentialist view or a technological transference view of how we relate with local communities. But I think the WASP Lab and the Living Lab emphasizing the powerful notion of how construct knowledge to create new territorial areas with multi-actors perspective, such as multi-actor territory. And another important aspect of the interdisciplinary school of WasiLab is that it creates an academic environment that really try to connect different faculties, individuals, and files of knowledge. And this is very important to the doctoral students, how we integrate these different professors' perspectives, these different partners' perspectives on my own research, and have a place, a physical place, physical meetings to think about that. I think that is very important from the lab.
Thank you very much. So that's how we love to work in interdisciplinary doctoral school. It's like a really great idea about shaping the future education and what we are trying to do. Now I would like to know a little more about how has interdisciplinary students and workers from doctoral schools, what are your example of experiences, what are the benefits, and I guess also we all want to know about the challenges, because I guess it's not an easy river. What are the benefits and challenges in the interdisciplinary teaching, learning in education and research? And I think, Tanya, I'm going to give you back the speech, the power.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, I studied in interdisciplinary doctoral school. It was at UNAM. So the most rewarding thing were the tutorial sessions, where I have an interdisciplinary committee for my PhD, where we can talk all together with a biologist, an anthropologist, one philosopher of science, and one anthropology of food specialist. So they all were involved in my research. They all have comments for my research, and I think the result of their feedback for my research complemented several theoretical aspects. Thus, learning is comprehensive, and the direction of my work took were completely new and were completely rich of ideas, of new visions, and this was like a product of a team group. So I think this space for think one problem from different perspectives, and the challenge that I, as a doctoral student, have to have to think in all these visions, was very important, was very interesting for me. And also in the classes, during the classes, I had the opportunity to interact, to talk, to think with my partners that come from, I remember marine science, ocean science, from, I don't know, sociology, geography, architecture, and how they look, how they understand the world were very different. Different, I think, theoretical, personal, and epistemological. They had different views from the world. So interacting in these spaces, I think, was very useful for me, from my own definition of how can I want to see the world. I think this is the most benefit of being part of an interdisciplinary program. But also I hit the challenge we face here in Ecuador is the daily practice of interdisciplinary. That includes figuring out how to teach classes from interdisciplinary approach with professors, with people that usually comes from disciplinary approaches, and also how to construct research proposals, how to develop appropriate research methods, how to engage the entire university community in practical applications. And I think this is a challenge not just the professors, of the people involved in thinking in interdisciplinary, but also is a challenge from the whole university, how we can administrative organize the university to include people from different faculties, people from different places, and make it work.
Thank you very much for your experience in Ecuador. Maybe I would like to hear Manon with your French experience of interdisciplinary school.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, to jump in what Tanya said, I totally agree with the different languages we are speaking when we are working in one specific discipline, and sometimes I remember funny moments during the interdisciplinary Thursday. So those are seminars organized by Camille and her team, where all the students, the PhD students, need to present their thesis, their work, and we didn't come from the same background. And sometimes it came to discussions where we thought that we were speaking about the same thing, but finally we had different ways to understand and to traduce what the person was saying, even in individual talks. So it's really about communicating about what we are doing, and I think it's a really good exercise, because it's also a training to communicate with people who don't know what you're doing when they are researchers, but also when they're not. So I think when you are able to explain your work to new people, even in the research area or not, it's a real exercise to really use easy words and to be in this process of sensibilization and to reduce the technical aspects. So here is a really good challenge, but at the same time a really good exercise that can benefit for the researcher to sensibilize and know how to teach to different public, different audiences. So that would be the first aspect. And if I want to add something, I can mention the notion of legitimacy, because when you are with researchers, there is really this thing about being an expert in what you're doing and doing maybe the same subject for 30 years. And here this is about not only knowing about what you are working on, but also being able of bringing dialogue between topics, between point of views. And as a young researcher, I always are often faced old researchers who told me that this was not a good way to do science, that I would have difficulties when I will try to find, for instance, a job in academic. So here it's also helped us to be a real advocate of interdisciplinarity and also a real advocate of our subject, to be really confident of this way of doing research. And maybe to end with that, Isaac, what you introduced a little bit, Tanya, about the administrative staff, that all the institutional way of doing research is really made for a disciplinary approach. So, for instance, in France, when you want to look for a job, you have in the academic area, you have to focus on different sections for the National Council of Universities, and there are no sections which are interdisciplinary. They are all really focused in one specific discipline. So here I think it would be our mission also to bring interdisciplinarity, not only as a PhD student, but also being a researcher at the university.
Thank you very much, Manon. I guess, Camille, you have much things to say. Maybe as your point of view has like someone working in the interdisciplinary doctoral school, how do you do to really help the students to maybe find work after, and to found professors that are able to work in those fields who are interdisciplinary? Like Tanya said, do you have any tips for your experience of working in FIRE?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thanks again, Manon, Tanya. So indeed, I think it's quite crucial at the beginning of building an interdisciplinary PhD project is to find the best person to work with as PhD supervisors, PI, because indeed someone may feel like super interested and attracted by the topic you want to address during the PhD, and maybe quite miss the part when you say, well, by the way, it's going to be interdisciplinary research. Maybe they just focus on, okay, it's like this question I'm interested in. But I think it's super important to really emphasize and highlight the interdisciplinary dimension, because as Manon was giving this example of some, let's say, senior researchers which have quite an idea of how to do research, or at least how to do research in one field, addressing one specific type of question, because they've been doing it for decades this way, and that's how they've been building their career and professional life. Some of them might be, after all this time of doing research one way, feeling like open to explore different ways of doing research. So it can be then a good option to start talking with them, like, you have this expertise, but how would you like to take this question through a different angle, bringing insights from maybe a completely different disciplines, perhaps mixing qualitative and quantitative methodologies, for instance. So I would really say it's super important to talk about interdisciplinarity with potential future supervisor, to make sure you hear it the same way, and it's not just like, okay, you'll be working with me and we add a co-supervisor who is from another discipline, and that we'll do something on another dimension, and at the end we will just put the two things nearby each other and say it was interdisciplinarity. So it's really crucial to find a good proper person for the project, because scientists are still human beings after all, and some are more used to keep doing things the way they've been doing it so far, and others are quite keen and willing to jump into this challenge, because we quite said it's a challenge to do interdisciplinary research, and to me the parts that are challenging are exactly the same that can lead to benefits. And so I would also say, Sarah, that it's important then to also meet people like in conferences. So maybe it's right after you started your PhD, or if you have the chance to go to attend such events in the master already, to really meet people from other fields, because as we say, the way science is organized, It's also done through disciplines at the institutional, organizational level. And so typically what one scientific community goes, the type of conference they attend, and even the type of scientific journals they're publishing are quite specific to one field. So starting already to attend and go to events that are not only in the field you're coming from, but to another one can be a really nice way to bond with people who are aligned with your mindset. And then as for the opposite part, so one of your questions, Sarah, was really more at the very beginning of the test, is how you can try to be surrounded by the good team to work through interdisciplinarity. The second part is about like what's next when you've done this and well, you want to continue your professional life, and the specificity of interdisciplinary through it. As Manon also said, and Tanya, it's true that so far in many different universities and faculties, the way it's still like it has been built for even not decades but centuries is really through big faculties and disciplines, and you normally had to fit in one box. So indeed, being sure like through doing interdisciplinarity, you can join like boxes that are more flexible than other, because there still do exist now places, university labs that are really open to young researchers who have been experiencing already this interdisciplinary research. And then there's also many different ways we guide our students, not only through academia. So ways also to perform research in other structures that can be companies, NGOs, working for stakeholders at different, public world, even in politics, to have another impact of how things can change. So I think it's also something nice to have in mind, and in these different domains, they can really see the benefit, especially if you're a good advocate for it, about having done this research in different disciplines, because especially when you leave academia, people are not only looking for just an expert of one scientific domain, but are also super sensitive to all the other type of skills and competencies you've been developing. And a PhD is definitely an incredible way of gaining transferable skills in so many domains, from communication, project management, solving complex problems, having critical thinking, etc., etc. So all of that you can really have value in different career paths. And I think more and more in the future, I really feel it's changing this way. There could be more a porous frontier between academia and not academia, and feeling like if someone is continuing living, well, maybe they can still come back to university at some point. Like it's not really, the two roads are separating it at one point, and then it's like too late to change anytime in the future.
Thank you very much. We are going to our last question, so we have 10 minutes more before we can go to the questions. So you talk about highlight benefits and purpose of interdisciplinary doctoral schools. My last question is about intercultural exchanges, that you already a little talked about it during your answer, but for example in the WasiLab project we are trying to really make connections between fire doctoral schools, so here in LPI in Paris, and the WasiLab doctoral school, so that is starting in Ecuador, Quito, and we really think that it's foster collaboration and intercultural exchanges, so between students, researchers, and foster imagination between diverse backgrounds. So we try to really focus on this point and make students talk to each other as much as possible, researchers too. So maybe if you have some what can you say about it, Manon? Maybe that you already met some people from the PUSE in October. Do you have any experiences about this?
Yes, actually, I had the chance to meet your team, Tanya, in Paris last October, and I think there are a lot of doors open to begin this new collaboration. And one good point I can face here is this open vision. Also to cross research from the north and from the south, from different parts of the world. And it's about having an open mind, having the humility to mix our research background in terms of references, in terms of cultural and historical aspects of how problems are asked and how we can resolve them. So I think, yes, it's a really it's an advantage also to see that we are all in the same boat finally, that the issues you are facing in Ecuador are the same in France. And I think that when we are talking about sustainability, it must be worldwide, it must be at a planetary level, and it may be more difficult to really focus at a local scale to really be able to understand those challenges if we only focus in Paris, Le Marais. So here is a good example of collaboration, cooperation, and how together we can try to think with our differences as strengths to focus on sustainability.
Thank you very much, Manon. Maybe Camille, you want to go on, and Tanya will finish about this question, maybe about your future travel to Quito, also to meet doctoral students in La Pousse and do a little meeting there and workshops.
Yes, well, I'm glad to follow up what Manu was saying, because PhD students are definitely the best ambassador to say how they see this intercultural background and how they want to foster interaction with other PhD students. But what I'd like to say first is that I quite think and feel there is a correlation between also people that go for interdisciplinary studies. It takes a specific mindset, because we said it's already being quite open-minded to something new, to ways of doing science coming from another disciplines. So I really think like it's the same type of people having this open mindset that are also very more open and welcoming to other cultures and people from intercultural exchanges, to be welcoming it really and taking it, really learning from it. We can have insight from so many dimensions, even from the scientific perspective. Everything we've been chatting so far about performing interdisciplinary research, I think you can also see how universities are functioning in France, how it is in Ecuador, how it is in other places of the world, and also, just exchange the practices and see what are the best practices available so far, and how you can implement it in your own space to make things change and move in what you think is the proper direction. So, yeah, I really think it's really a matter also of mindset and being open to other people. So, as for our next interactions with La Pousse and the WasiLab, we're indeed planning a visit after colleagues visited LPI last October to go and exchange this year with them, and see exactly how their new PhD students are starting to work there, what we can bring from what we know from the doctoral school in France, what are they needed, what are they starting brand new there, and how then afterward, as Manu was saying, especially talking about sustainability or many other aspects, it's worldwide. There is definitely no more frontiers when we're talking about such problems. So how PhD students from different parts of the world want to find ways to interact on this topic, and again share their experiences, learn from each other, learn and get what was functioning, what was a good option, good tips, what was like failing, and how they managed to still overcome something complicated. Also in the idea of not feeling alone, or like you were the only one facing this or that problem, but maybe someone in WasiLab is going to experience the same, and how you can share practice and grow together and build really a worldwide scientific community that have the same concern and again the same spirit to go and address all these questions together.
Thank you, Camille. Tanya, do you have anything to add to what Madame Camille said?
Yes, I want to contextualize that in Western science, we usually speaks about the center, peripheria, places to generate knowledge. And this generates a very inequitative way of how we related with scientists from other world countries. So I think these interdisciplinary doctoral schools can build new ways to think science, not just in these power difference places, but also to think about how local and knowledge and global science can be thinking, can be imagined, and can be can be make it. So I think that this is a very important opportunity to deconstruct how traditional science has been thinking in different places of the world. And also it's very nice that Camille says about how we create communities of knowledge, not just think the world south or the global north. No, how we can think beyond this difference. And also, I think when we talk about intercultural exchanges, I think it's very important in the Ecuadorian context to think about the interculturality that the country already has, no? How we include indigenous communities, peasants communities, local communities, to think more locally, to think national science, and also to think a global science. And this is very rich for think global problems and how we can combine different epistemologies, different ontologies to solve sustainability problems.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna just put this slide and then I'm gonna cut the recording to start the question. So thank you very much. I'm gonna end here.